This is part B of section 5.1.1. We're evaluating exponential functions that we cannot approximate with the calculator now. So in other words, these exponential functions cannot be evaluated exactly. So we use a calculator and we get a decimal and we round it. So we get an approximation of a decimal. So most calculators either have the XY key or a caret key, and that's how you can evaluate these. So my calculator has an XY key, which will pop up as a caret on the screen. So either of those buttons should work. Sometimes you have to use parentheses, especially if you have a negative in front of your exponent or a fraction. I'm going to do some of those. So you can see like our examples here. We have negative 2.7 is the exponent on 2 as the base. So we take 2, and then my key is the x to the y power. So I click that, and notice how that turns into a caret on my screen. It gives me a parenthesis right away so I don't forget. Not all calculators do that. This is my tablet calculator. Most calculators don't, so if yours doesn't, you need to make sure you put that parenthesis in, because now I need to type a negative 2.7. My calculator actually tends to get a little parenthesis happy. When I do negatives, it gives me a parenthesis too. So I have a couple options here. Either I can just close it with 2 parentheses, one for the negative, one for the exponent, or I can just delete one of those because my calculator allows me to click in there. Again, not all calculators allow that, so you might just have to put those parentheses in yourself, or and you might have to double close it if it gives you 2 parentheses. So I'm going to round this to the 4. Oh, I thought they said 4 decimal places, but it looks like this one's rounded to 3 decimal places. So 1.153, that 3 rounds up because the 8 is greater than 5 or greater. So we round the 3 up to a 4. So I'm going to enter that one, and then I'm going to do the next one, 2 to the negative 4/5 power. So I get 2 to the power of negative 4 divided by fifths, 5. That gives me a fraction of 4/5 and a negative in front. And I'm going to delete one of those parentheses, and I get 0.574, and then I can just I can cut it off there because the next number is less than 5. So that is the second one. And then what happens as that fraction becomes positive? Okay, I'm going to clear that, and I'm going to go 2 to the power of 5/7. So I didn't need a negative sign this time, so I didn't get a double parenthesis. And I round that off to 1.64. That 0 becomes a 1 because the 6 is 5 or greater. So I round up, and I get 1.641. And then my next one is 2 to the power of 2.7. No negative sign that time. And I get 6.498. And the next number is 0, so I can just cut it off at the 8. So we did, looking back over here versus here, so negative 2.7 versus 2.7, those exponents, they should be reciprocals of each other. So let's see. For 2 to the 2.7, what would be the reciprocal of that? I already hit enter, so I got it out of my memory, which is too bad. I'll put it back in. And I get, whoops, not 2. 2.7. Close that. What if I took the reciprocal of that, which is this key? Oops, I guess I got to start with that key. Then I get the same answer that I got if I had used a negative in the exponent. So notice that negative exponent is just finding the reciprocal. All right, so that's a little fun fact. All right, so now let's look at our examples for homework exercises 11 through 18, where we have to approximate these with the calculator. So notice these are decimals and radicals, irrational numbers, numbers that we cannot evaluate just by multiplying it out. So we can't get the exact answer, so we need to use a calculator and approximate using a decimal. So I'm looking at A now, 3 to the power of 2.4. And this time they're asking us to round to 4 decimal places in the directions. So this one I'm going to round to 9,666, and that fifth digit is a 1. So I'm just going to cut it off. So this one I'm going to use an approximation sign because it's approximately 13.9666. And then to change that to a negative, so I'll hit enter, 3 to the power of, and I want a negative 2.4. And I get, rounding to 4 decimal places, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fifth digit is a 9, so I'm going to round up. And I get approximately 0.0716. All right, this time I want to use for C, I'm going to 3 to the radical 2. So I'll clear that, and I say 3 to the power of, and I need my parenthesis in there. So if your calculator doesn't automatically put your parenthesis in, make sure you put a parenthesis in there. And you do square root of 2. Actually, your parentheses actually assumed because the square root sign is also a grouping symbol. So I'm going to still use my parenthesis, and I get 4.7288. My fifth digit is a 0, so I'm going to cut that off. 4.7288. All right, in part D through F, we actually have irrational numbers as our base. So I'm going to start with the number E. So E is right here on your calculator, 2.7182818285. It actually goes on infinitely. So that's already an estimate of E. You'll also notice this e to the power of x on your calculator because e is often used with an exponent. So e to the power of 1, some calculators don't have e by itself, so you do e to the power of 1 and you get you get that estimate of e, same estimate that we got when we just typed in that e. And let's see, so this time we're doing e to the power of, so I can either use the e to the x or e and then the power key. So e to the x gives me my parenthesis there already. It's already ready for my exponent, and I just type in my exponent and close that, and I get approximately 11.0232. 7 rounds up the 1 to a 2. Notice I would have got the same answer if I had used this E key. Whoops. Clear that. E, and then the power key, because that gives me the caret. And then I type in that 2.4. And I get the same answer. For E, part E, now we have pi as our base. So there's my pi. I'm going to take that to the power of, with my parenthesis, because I got a negative I got to keep in my exponent, square root of 2. I have a lot of parentheses there. A couple of them aren't necessary because my square root works as a grouping symbol. There's only one term. And I already have one for the exponent. It doesn't do any harm. The calculator will still recognize it. But I'm just going to take one out. And that equals 0.1981. And my last one, part F, we have pi to the power of negative e. And again, if your calculator doesn't have e with no exponent, you can just always do e to the power of 1. And there is those 6 answers that correspond to examples for 11 through 18.